in the live chat where people are saying, well, I know this in general about people who have problems with alcohol or drugs or gambling or other abuse, addiction related issues causing issues with children. Yeah, but we don't presume things like that. We don't assume that everybody that has an issue, that you have to prove it with actual facts. And that's the problem here.
Well,
in the live chat,
things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar. You're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression because I am very high.
Ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash. Yeah.
Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Welcome to the Libertarian Podcast Review. We'll call it LPR. This is Tyler. It's a work day. It's in the middle of the day. What is it? 10:30 here on the Pacific Coast. 12:30 in the central area, and I think 1:30 over there on the East Coast, folks. We're going to do a little bit more Nick Rekieta. I couldn't help. This is my office. This is at least portion of my office, and yes, this is what I'm wearing to work today. A T-shirt. It's just this is the way it works out. We do have some people in here. JC's in here. Yeah, 12:30 stream for you. And oh my God, hi JC. Of course, the obligatory, and hi from David Brady as well. David, you should be on summer vacation, so I hope you're enjoying that. I played that clip there of Robert Barnes because he has. And we're going to do a few things here. We're going to talk about Nick a little bit more. I hope you checked out my last stream. So once again, I am Tyler Yonke. I'm a family law attorney. Okay, I practice. That's my job. That's the only way I make money. Mostly, no, that is. And I happen to do a podcast stuff, which I love libertarian stuff. I love legal stuff. I love making jokes with Andy. I do Tower Gang. Check that out tonight, 9:11 p.m. Eastern. So that's the Tower Gang. I'm not on the show. I'm the what do you call it? I guess you would say, I'm the producer. I'm the man that pushes buttons, pulls levers, and I help out with that. So the point I'm getting at here is I'm a practicing attorney, and this whole thing with Nick Rekieta, we broke it down a little bit before. I'm going to do a little bit more of a legal aspect today and talk about it and some of the disturbing stuff that's out there with some attorneys. I think this LawTube phenomenon that's out there that Nick was really, he made a ton of money with that, and perhaps his downfall. But with that in mind, it created a bunch of these offshoots, and I love it. It's fine. Look, you watch TV, and there's people commentating about the law all the time, and half the time they don't know what they're talking about. And one of those, or two of those, the most maybe disturbing couple out there right now is Viva Frei and Robert Barnes. I've had problems with both of those for quite some time, and especially Barnes. And I think and I'm going to play a few clips of some other people talking about him and his stuff. And the problem you have with Barnes is that he's definitive. He's super smart. He's definitive on what he thinks he knows, and everyone else is wrong. But he does it in a way that is polemica. It's with politics in mind, and it's with I think it's bad advice if you are an actual a counsel rather than just someone pontificating. That's maybe the difference, and that's maybe how you should take it into it. But I think he's wrong a lot. Alex Jones situation. Rittenhouse, by the way, they fired him. I believe that's correct. I don't want to be defaming here, but I'm pretty sure. I know he was working on the case at some point, and then he was no longer part of that council, and they won. Alex Jones situations, his commentary about that, about the default judgments. It is so difficult to get a default judgment. Not difficult, but if you participate, it's very difficult. So that is so odd to me. And he always talked about it, how it is a political witch hunt. Could be. I look at the stuff with Trump, political witch hunts. Yes, definitely. They're going down that path, and you can see that process. But what you don't do then is put yourself up with counsel that's piece of shit that doesn't know what they're talking about. And I think here's what I'll say about I said this before, and then we'll walk our way through this, which is expectations. And this is probably the problem you have of a lot of these YouTube guys, that if they're not practicing law on a daily basis, they get skewed and everything starts to turn into a law school thing. What you do in law school, you get a problem, okay? And you read it. It's a fact pattern. It's like, Nick Rekieta, has kids, there's cocaine here. He does this, and it's all in, intent, and everything's mixed in there. And then you have to, there's what's called the call the question, what crimes or what's the liability if it's a civil type of thing, or those kind of things. So, and then you've got to walk through and find all the problems and make arguments either way, what the evidence points to. That's what these guys do. And I think for a lot of it, it's not rooted in reality. It's not rooted in reality. And what I mean by that is you've got to then, that's fine. You do this fact pattern, this breakdown, and then PIRAC, what you call it, or IRAC, which is problem, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. That's kind of how you draw your write up on that. And that's all law school, and that's great. But what you have to do if you're an attorney is advise your client. We are called counsel for a reason. And advising your client is based off of your interpretation of not only the law, but how these courts are going to interpret that law, how they've done that on precedent. And that is my biggest thing. Day in, day out, it's beating over the head my clients, what the expectation, what I think the outcome is going to be. And by the way, I don't do any advertising. And why? Because I set the expectations and then I meet them or beat them, but you're always around that spot. So you can see what's going to happen. And when the client comes out of that and they go, oh, he told me X happened. Okay. That makes sense. And you can properly advise your clients going forward with that. Now we're going to see something like, okay, this is a great comment by Ruthless Redneck here. Living in law school is like living in a Capistan neat theory, but not real life. Could be. There's a lot of things living in your head. It's fine to, and like even religion, right? You've got to have some sort of, there's ideals out there, but then there's exactly right, living in reality and what perfection is and whatnot, and try to deal with life accordingly. I believe, without getting too off on the libertarian theory, I believe a lot of libertarian theory is based off of praxeology, which is what is rational thought that's going to happen. Even Mises, I started to deviate here a little bit, but even Mises talked about people that make irrational decisions. To them, that's rational. They are making them based on the inputs that they have and the ability to think and what rational stuff is. Now in law, we have a lot of reasonable person standards, so you have to take it from there, and duties you owe to people. And if you're a doctor, you have perhaps, on the medical side, a higher duty than someone else who doesn't know medical stuff. But other than that, Scott says, Tower Gang Wednesday. Yeah, looking forward to that tonight. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. There was the Nick Rekieta stuff. There was all we had initially was this affidavit of the detainment. In other words, they went in there, they arrested Nick, they arrested his wife, they arrested this other chick, they took the kids away, and then they wrote an affidavit based on that, what they found, da-da-da. With that, people blew their minds, and there was a bunch of analysis, and you had this Robert Barnes being first and foremost among them. And I'm going to... But the affidavit for the search warrant itself had not been released. So we don't know all the details in the search warrant, but we had all the details of the detainment. You have to have an affidavit saying why they were arrested. You didn't have to say, hey, here's all the details in the warrant. That's going to be at another point. And you're going to have an affidavit that you present to the judge that's going to sign off on there, and we're going to walk through there. But I thought first we would just play. This is after the detainment affidavit was released. And make sure I have the right one. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay, this one here. There we go. So this is after the affidavit was, I'm sorry, the detainment was, and I did play the first clip already, but we're going to, anyway, I'm going to walk through 3 of these different ones here with Robert Barnes making comments about the affidavit of detainment, which he knows, not the search warrant itself, not what's in the search warrant, but once that they were arrested. And then we'll walk through what that means.
See, I thought they had some independent basis for this. They had none. All they did is some, and this will get to the Fourth Amendment issue now. I thought there was something more here. Not, okay, you found something in a dude's bathroom, and that's it. All of a sudden, you're going to take that as a ground for a search warrant. You're going to take that as a ground to take away Second Amendment rights. You're going to take that as grounds, take away care.
Okay, first of all, I have to comment a little bit because Barnes has got to be smarter than this, but I think he grifts too much in a sense of he's kind of the GOP, libertarian, mostly GOP kind of guy, and Trump, right? So as long as you say that or pro-Israel stuff, you're going to be perfectly fine, and then you always has to go down that bucket whether anything else makes sense or not. He just said they took stuff from his house, and how is that a basis for the warrant? Well, you dumb fuck, they get the warrant before they go in there. So obviously it's chicken egg, or it's not even that. You're talking about it blows. Okay, we'll just keep going because that's a problem.
Custody and control of children. You're going to use that to let child endangerment when the child. I read the statute requires the child be in the presence. They're interpreting that so broadly that they can basically take away anybody's child if any substance you're using they don't like.
Okay, so I will say the charges themselves can be altered, but you initially go in there and you say, we found this, we found kids in the house. Remember, this is homeschooled, and we're going to get to the ages of the kids, and we'll walk through that. Okay, Scott says, Robert Barnes looked like one of the thumb people from Spy Kids. Solid callback. As someone who has kids, that does make a lot of sense. Okay, so there you have that part. I hope you guys were able to hear that okay. I didn't need to actually stop that, but there we go. We're going to do this next one. I already played this one, but we're going to play it anyway. So here we go. And by the way, I'm taking this from Legal Mindset.
In the live chat where people are saying, well, I know this in general about people who have problems with alcohol or drugs or gambling or other abuse, addiction related issues causing issues with children. Yeah, but we don't presume things like that. We don't assume that everybody that has an issue that you have to prove it with actual facts. And that's the problem here.
Well,
okay, yes, you're correct there. That is the problem. But once again, he's talking about the detainment. Okay, let's go to this one, and last one we're going to play with him, and then we're gonna break some additional things out. Make sure this is loud enough because I think it's a little problematic.
Detail. I mean, that's what I thought. Okay, this is a detention warrant. This is saying this is the.
Once again, he just said it there, so he can't play stupid, which is this is a detention warrant, which Barnes is exceptionally smart, which means you then have to dictate where, I'm assuming, maybe Barnes isn't right there. He said the detainment warrant, you took them, that's your detaining. It's really an affidavit on that, but okay, it's not the search warrant.
And I thought, okay, there's going to be a lot of details of what the.
Okay, well, maybe he's confused because there's no grounds for necessarily about, you only have to have the grounds for why you arrested them, okay? Drugs in the house, gun there, kids in the house, while you found it, this is what the search warrant was for, those drugs are illegal, arrest.
The
That's all you need.
Said that really precipitated serious concern, and it's not there. I mean, I was stunned it wasn't there. I was like, wow. They saw this as an opportunity to go after one of probably their biggest critic, given how small a county they are.
Okay.
Their biggest critic. They're like, this is a chance to shut him up and punish him for yipping about us for years. That's what I see, because that pastor's complaint was more like, hey, I got a basic concern. It was not, here, this specific. Nothing like that was there.
Okay, and here's the problem with him, which is, once again, that's a detainment warrant. We're going to go further into there actually was an arrest warrant and an affidavit according, and we're going to break some of those details down. But before we do that, I thought it would be very important to see what is in Minnesota the requirements for probable cause. Well, it's probable cause to get a warrant. Okay, so what are those requirements? And it's pretty easy. There's a court case, Wiley. And I'll just read the main parts that they do here. It says in Illinois v. Gates, it's a 1983 Supreme Court ruled that the presence of probable cause should be determined under a totality of the circumstances test. That means you take everything into account. It's not just, I'm getting a divorce from my wife because she had an argument with me. No. It's the argument, the cheating, the stealing the money, beating my kids. Those are the reasons. I'm just saying, that's kind of how that is. So the judge is going to take everything into account, bit by bit. Each one of those little things may not be enough, but it's a micro cuts that end up sawing off your arm, okay? The task of issuing magistrate is simply to make a practical, common sense decision whether giving all the circumstances set forth in the affidavit before him, including the veracity and the basis of knowledge of persons supplying hearsay information, there is a fair probability that contraband or evidence of a crime will be found in a particular place. Very important there. Which means it's not just random, some guy off the street saying, hey, or being doxxed in a sense. Rekieta is like, he's a bad guy, I'm going to make stuff. It's people that have integral knowledge. What kind of person is this? Is this his drug dealer telling him, trying to get off on a case? Or is it his pastor? And we're going to talk about a few other people that are even more important as far as how these things go, as far as the veracity that you would talk about with a person. Okay, hearsay. Hearsay is an out-of-court statement used for the truth of the matter asserted. Okay, so basically, there's all kinds of exceptions for hearsay, but we're talking at a trial level. If you're in trial, you're Perry Mason stuff, you can object hearsay, right? But there are exceptions. You bring a document, I want to present this document. Well, that's a hearsay document. Then there's layers of hearsay. It's this guy told this guy, and now that guy's trying to talk. But there's all kinds of exceptions you can have too. Maybe it's underage kids of an abuse, then you get it through a CPS or a social worker. Someone's dead, they're dying declarations, all these kind of things. And then there's other things where you can use their statements, even if they're not, because otherwise you bring them into court. But you can use hearsay to get probable cause to get a warrant. Then the warrant is like, did we find anything within there? That's what it is. Now, Robert Barnes makes some points here, and he's I get it where he's upset, and maybe he wants the Constitution to be more like I would have it. Probably not, because he's probably into corporation. But with that in mind, that seems to be how he dictates things rather than how the law actually is. So once again, in Capistan, Robert Barnes in your head, whatever it is, we've got to live in the real world. Nick doesn't get to go in there and make all kinds of arguments. By the way, this shouldn't be a gun charge for whatever reason. Okay. Well, here's the law, and it sucks. And let's get the law changed, but let's change that. Scott says, I feel like being homeschooled plays a big part in the pastor taking the initiative to report, since teachers are mandatory reporters. We'll get to that because it comes through, the pastor ends up being the pipeline of how everyone is complaining. And you talk about veracity. Are you going to believe, Nick calls himself the Pope of LawTube, or the people call him that. Pope aside, are you going to give a pastor, is he going to be someone that the police or the neighborhood is going to be thought of as someone who is a stand-up person, an honest person, and that you're going to take his word for it? These are evidently multiple people contacting the pastor because they felt secure that he was this person that could hopefully help Nick and the family, okay? So they are pumping in information to him, and then he's like, I'm a mandatory reporter. By the way, there's no penitent victim or whatever privilege in this sense, because pastor privilege, type of thing, like attorney-client privilege. There's none of that privilege because these are other people telling him. It's not Nick telling the pastor. And even then, that kind of privilege can still be broken down a little bit. Okay, let's get back into a little bit of this here. Okay, so that's how the warrant could be done in the first place, which is practical knowledge, totality of the evidence, every single thing you could think of, the veracity of the person and their basis of knowledge for this. As an example, it's just some guy on the street that sees him drive by, or perhaps a live-in nanny, someone that has a thing against Nick online, or maybe the wife's sister. These are the kind of people that have veracity and knowledge base, okay? Now, if you're going to try to push up against this warrant and say it's unconstitutional, well, a magistrate's determination of probable cause should be paid great deference by reviewing courts. Okay, so we're talking about you're going to appeal this, and reviewing courts should not review the determination de novo. Now that means that the court can't then say, I'm going to just look at this exactly as I'm going to read it myself. I'm not going to see how this other... No, you have to... There's a lot of deference, at least in Minnesota here, that you have to review this specific... If you're doing it on appeal or to try to knock this down, and a different judge is going to review it, you have to review it as that judge did and through their eyes, in a sense, not through your own eyes on a separate cause. The Fourth Amendment requires only that the magistrate have a substantial basis for concluding that a search would uncover evidence of wrongdoing. Okay, and they quote some court cases there. In reviewing the sufficiency of an affidavit under the totality of the circumstances test, courts must be careful to not review each component of the affidavit in isolation. So once again, there's going to be some things we're going to look at here that are probably like, is that it? But once again, it's microcuts. It's microcuts that all add up to death of the person, so to speak. Totality of the circumstances, courts must review each component of the affidavit. Can't do it in isolation. Even if each component is judged unsubstantial, the components viewed together may reveal in the informant's tip an internal coherence that gives weight to the whole. Massachusetts v. Upton. Furthermore, the resolution of doubtful or marginal cases should be largely determined by the reference to the accorded warrants. Okay. Therefore, and then this is just the case that it was talking about. In light of these principles, we find the affidavit sufficient to establish probable cause. The affidavit stated, We didn't really care about that part. That's that specific case. Okay, that is there. Now, I just wanted to take a look at there's what's called standards of proof and what is actually probable cause. I just Googled this up real quick so we would have an idea for it. Probable cause is a legal standard used in the United States where a police officer with sufficient evidence to justify an arrest, seizure, search, or seizure. It is a flexible standard that considers the totality of the circumstances that we just read, and interpretation can vary depending on the specific facts of each case. Probable cause is defined as reasonable belief based on the facts, circumstances that a crime has been or is being committed, or that evidence of a crime is present in a specific location. The standard is higher than reasonable suspicion, which is required for a Terry stop, but lower than that required for reasonable doubt standard used in criminal trials. So there you go. Let's take a look at standards of trials. And there we go. And we've talked about these many times. So criminal, everyone knows that beyond a reasonable doubt. You've got to have no doubt that it's that. But then there's two other types: preponderance of the evidence and clear and convincing evidence. Preponderance of the evidence, and I'll read it here and just kind of explain it. The plaintiff must prove that their claim is more likely than not to be true. The standard is often referred to as a 51% rule. So think of a balancing scale just a little bit over and you got it. Clear and convincing, that standard is used in civil cases, particularly those involving serious allegations and significant consequences. Clear and convincing evidence requires a higher level of proof than preponderance of the evidence. It's often used in cases involving fraud, malice, intentional wrongdoing. And all of those are a standard below what we're talking about here. We're just talking about probable cause. We're not talking about what it takes when you go to court, whatnot. Okay, Benzo with Barbie. Hey, homies, I'm still alive and started from the beginning, so I'm not caught up with y'all. But when you do, you'll read that and enjoy. Okay, by the way, she called me. People were like, hey, wait, what? No, she was doing some stuff for the, I think the Mises Caucus, asking about something, and left a message. I'm sorry I didn't call you back. I think I texted you. But good to see you back in the chat. Maybe we'll see you on Tower Gang tonight. Not on the show, but in the chat. Okay, with that in mind, let's go to the application for the actual search warrant. I've tried to redact some of this, although it's all out there, and so it's just kind of like whatever. Let's see if we can find it. Nope, not there. Window. There we go. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Maybe we can. I'm going to read through this. Now, what you do, and I'm not going to read every little bit here, but what I'm going to first do is, this is an officer. He talks about his experience because once again, we talked about that knowledge base. Okay, this is layers of, these are people telling him something, and now he's going to reiterate it back as a warrant, total hearsay, because those people aren't going to be testifying or give an affidavit, and there we go. So this is his, and now there's a supplemental, by the way, arrest police report. And we're going to piggyback onto that because I got released today, and it's even more damning than just this. Okay, so make sure we have all that. Okay, so Quinn Pomplin, that's the police officer. He's worked there for years. I'm gonna skip over this. He believes the following. He describes the property that there was controlled substances, including meth, coke, other controlled substance prohibited by law, paraphernalia. Items that show controlled substances that would not qualify as legal drug use or paraphernalia on the premises, and then they describe it, because what you've got to be is particular in your warrant so that the search can only go as dictated. You don't just get to say, I get a search warrant for your house and then go for everything. But they are looking for drug paraphernalia, so that's what they're looking for. And if they see other things in plain view, It can be, but you can't be like, I get to dig through something unless it says you can actually dig through that. Anyway, it talks about Nick Rekieta. He applied for a search warrant. The officer did. Let's see here. He's a licensed peace officer, state of Minnesota, since 2009. He's been employed by the county since 2013. Since 2018, he's been assigned detective division as a full-time basis, focusing on felony level crimes. So he's since 2018, but not limited to criminal sexual conduct, homicide, death investigation, missing persons. So he does everything. You know, it's a small town, but he's in the county. Financial crimes, such that. 2013 to 18, he was assigned to Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office Patrol Division for investigating street-level crimes, including but not limited to driving under the influence, controlled substances, thefts, burglaries, assaults, financial crimes. So he's basically given his training and street training in a sense here. He was employed as a chief of police for the Sacred Heart Minnesota Police Department. So for 3 years, he was the chief of police, responsible for admin, investigations, and patrol. This guy, it seems to be a well-experienced attorney. Hundreds of hours of training, but not limited to crime scene investigation, property crimes, criminal sexual conduct, criminal interdiction assaults, domestic violence, hate crimes. Those are fake. Child sex abuse material, active shooter, death investigation, aquatic death investigation, elder abuse. You should go after Biden's family for that one. Vulnerable adult financial abuse, same with that one. Financial crimes, firearms, less lethal munitions, diversionary devices, chemical agents, cellular phone extraction, cellular tower investigations, and evidence collection. Okay, so a lot of those are probably just some classes. He's also certified in firearms, all kinds of other stuff. He breaks that out. Okay. Now let's get to the case background. I'm not going to pronounce all these counties and stuff and just say county. So on May 16th, it's not too long ago, it's a few weeks, Sergeant Dave Nestor received a report regarding possible child neglect and controlled substance use. The reporter indicated that Nicholas Rekieta resides at He resides at the residence with his wife Kayla and 5 children ages 6 to 16, all minors, 6 to 16. The reporter indicated that 4 people from their church, so the reporter indicated this is the pastor I think we'll get to, had gone to him reporting neglect to the children, possible controlled substance use, and a questionable relationship with an additional couple. It was reported that Nicholas is a social media blogger. He and his wife Kayla had befriended hosts from a different local social media blogger. These individuals were identified as Aaron Imholte and April Imholte. Your affiant, that's the guy that's writing this, knows personally these personalities of the Steel Toe Morning Show, which used to be on St. Cloud, Minnesota radio. However, in recent years, the show has been a social media entertainment show, strictly online based. It was reported that the Imholtes may have been staying with Rekietas at the home and was in disarray and cluttered. It was reported from a church preschool teacher. This is the part where you start to really on this thing. And by the way, we're going to play show a thing here where Viva Fry is just fucking out of his mind. Okay, it was reported from a church preschool teacher that the children. Now this is multiple hearsay. This is the pastor hearing from the teacher who hear from the kids. Okay, of being hungry, not being fed, and wearing the same clothes for 3 to 4 days at a time, and would start to smell. Let's talk about this real quick. So these are little factors starting to build up, right? People reporting, there's drug use, Now, this is a teacher saying the kids are coming to me saying this. Now, other people have said, oh my God, this is, kids go to school hungry at times. Yes, but I think the way that this was, because they're mostly homeschooled, and I think it's into church school. They do some stuff with that. I think you see this with homeschooled where they have communities now, and they'll pool themselves, and parents will do some teaching, and it's not necessarily an organized school. It's technically homeschooled. I don't know if that's the whole case. I've heard him talk about homeschooling. That could be the situation. But what you're likely getting here is not a continual basis of these kids just forgot at lunch. These are 5 kids. And if they're hungry, if they're wearing the same clothes day in and day out, these are people that can afford it. These are people that have a lot of money. During the Rittenhouse, they said that he was the highest person on YouTube, had the most super chats. He's not doing poor, okay? He's making a lot of money. You can feed your kids on not much at all. You can clothe them, and even then, this is what it is. It's not a thing about wealth. It's about attention, right? So the kids are reporting this to the teacher, and they stink. This is a problem. These are white people. Okay, these are white people that stink. That's the problem. Nicholas reported to being lethargic. Ouch! I just bit my tongue. Lethargic and appeared high or drugged driving a car around. Another individual advised the reported that Nicholas would walk out randomly during sermons at church and have noticed behavioral changes in him. Okay, so what does that mean? That's likely that he was lethargic. He walks out of church, comes back, and he's not lethargic. So there's a good chance he wasn't drinking a can of cocaine, a can of Coke. He was snorting up some Coke. Or anyway, there's behavioral issues that are, to most people, you might not notice it, but when people start to worry about these things and it's noticeable. I've been around, there was a family that came over to our house once, and this dude would sweating like crazy, and he'd leave and come back, and he was all hyped up, and we were like, yeah, those fuckers aren't coming back here again. Another individual advised that the reported walked out during sermons and noticed behavioral changes in him. It was alleged Kayla looks anorexic. Okay. And Nicholas has lost a substantial amount of weight recently. Yeah, these are things to take into account. One individual described Nicholas as having injection or track marks on his arms. Now, these are neighbors or friends or family, whatever, are reporting this to the what you call it? The pastor. Yeah. So what it is, I don't know. The reporter reiterated concerns for possible neglect and or controlled substance use within the home. Your affiant started the review of Nick Rekieta's and Immolt's social media blogs. People, this is this is where the trouble can really happen, right? Watch what you post online as far as those kind of things. I do this with clients all the time. I even tell them when they're texting back and forth with the other party, anticipate litigation with what you're doing. Act like it's a business. Act like it's your boss. They don't like that because she's not my boss. Okay, fuck you. Act like it's your boss. That's all I'm saying. In other words, you wouldn't do something to get fired unless it's really necessary. And the problem you can have when you're doing a family law and with kids is you could get fired from being a parent, okay? So you don't want to have that at all. So you got to be careful with those kind of things. All right, let's keep going. Social media blogs, commonly related to legal issues and high-profile trials. As Nicholas is a licensed attorney, Nicholas is known to drink alcoholic beverages excessively on these video blogs. Yes, he is. I immediately noted that Nicholas' appearance in recent months has changed. In videos from January 2024 compared to May of 2024, Nicholas appeared to have lost weight, appears tired, and overall appears strung out, common with controlled substance users. Remember, this person, he did a background of like his knowledge, his street knowledge and whatnot with drugs and whatnot. So he can attest to this kind of stuff. Nicholas has been the victim of swatting phone calls and is known to the affiant and the county sheriff's office because of those calls. When the county sheriff's office responded to those calls, they gave that address. So he knows about that. While reviewing Immolt's social media blogs, Aaron, that's the guy that's wife was arrested with Nick and his wife. Aaron recently indicated that he and April are getting a divorce. Aaron goes on to say that he has experimented with cocaine 3 times and Molly 6 or 7 times in the past recently. In December 2023, the Immolts broadcast a podcast from Rekieta's studio with a podcast named Live from Spicer. Throughout Immolt's video blogs, it is apparent that they and the Rekietas were friends and they may have recently had a falling out. It should be noted that in the recent videos, Immholt April has at times also appeared tired, lethargic, and strung out as well. In both Nicholas's and Immolt's video blogs from Rekieta's studio, it is apparent that they are in the same room and the items in the background appear the same. At one point during the Immolt's videos, Nicholas walked in the background and grabs an item, which shows that the background is not a backdrop curtain and that it was the layout of the actual room. The point of that one is he's not streaming from a distant location. He's literally doing it from his basement, which is in his house, which means that's the place the kids reside, okay? Once again, I made the joke about this last time, which is this is literally him doing these things at their school because they're homeschooled. So, it's a little odd. The kids are there all day. It's not like you have a little bit of privacy. And Okay. Immolt did a video blog where he talked about Nicholas insinuated controlled substance use and also referenced the video blog that Nicholas put online on 5/21/2024. That's the one where he's strung out. that has since been taken off the internet. Immel indicates in this blog that Nicholas needs help and needs to get help for his kids because of the substance abuse. So these are things that you can take into account. It's not reported, but it's basically reported. I mean, you can use these items, as evidence, as direct evidence, as a matter of fact. Nicholas has a white powder. Okay, so substance abuse. And Immel points out at the time of the video where Nicholas has a white powdery substance on his nose. Your affiant was able to review the video that was taken off of Nicholas's YouTube and social media sites. The video is from around 5/21/2024 and is of Nicholas in his basement studio talking about a court appeals ruling he lost. He appears in the video to be drinking alcoholic beverages and eventually appears under the influence of a substance or substances. The entire video blog is 4 hours and 4 minutes long. Approximately 2:46 into the video, Nicholas leaves the room to use the restroom. When he returns at 2:50:40, he appears to be making an excited look and has white powdery substance on his nose. Your affiant believes his behavior is indicative of central nervous system stimulants. Your affiant believes, based on training and experience, as well as the behavior of Nicholas, that he ingested this white powdery substance through the nasal cavity while off camera. Your affiant knows through training and experience that ingesting controlled substances through the nasal cavity is commonly amongst controlled substance users and often referred to as snorting. Your affiant also noted that throughout the video, Nicholas is so under the influence of substances to the point he has to close one eye to read his screen, rambles, and slurs his speech. Nicholas would obviously not be able to care for his children in this state of intoxication. We've talked about that. So once again, do as you wish. Maybe your wife's fine. I don't think she's fine, or the kids would be going to school, clean, the house would be taken care of, all these aspects, because they are both in it together. And by the way, she looks kind of strung out too. Okay. I hope you guys are doing fine in the chat there. Okay. Your affiant believes the reports of neglect and controlled substance are consistent with the previously mentioned. Oh, did I finish that one? It should be noted that your affiant was a drug recognition evaluator for several years, and based on your affiant's training and experience, the behavior of Nicholas in his video blog indicates poly-substance abuse, meaning it is believed that he is ingesting more than one substance based on his behavior, both being excited and nearly passing out. This can be consistent behavior of using both CNS stimulants and depressants. Your affiant believes that the reports of negligent and controlled substance use are consistent with the previously mentioned information. Your affiant is requesting to search the premises for the above listed items in relation to the welfare of the children in the home, and in relation to a controlled substance investigation. Your affiant is also requesting us to search Nicholas Rekieta. Now, look, I request a search warrant be issued, and then they go on there, and it's signed by the officer. Now, here's the search warrant. We won't go through all of it because it's just basically, yeah, go ahead. And then it's signed by this judge, Jennifer K. Fisher, who happened to be the judge, because it's a small town, happened to be the judge that was, I think, in the case that he's involved in and he's losing. He's made horrible comments about her. And the point of, how come this thing is down here? How's this doing? Okay. And the point about her is Barnes and Viva are like, hey, the county's on a witch hunt and this judge is mixed up in it. There's an obvious conflict. I'm like, whoa. The only conflict here is the one Nick created. One, there's a defamation suit. He gets to defend himself, but he's losing, what have you. By the way, when that's going on, he's continually defaming the guy. It's just unreal. Then he is basically saying the most horrible things about the judge. The conflict is him. It's him. He's created this. The conflict is him saying these things about the judge that he doesn't have to. But this is a problem. By the way, I think he was doing this when he was even sober. So God bless him. But Patrick says Barnes and Viva to be defending Nick at all costs the same way they defend. I said that at the start. It's this MAGA thing with them, and I've said this over and over with Barnes recently, which is he says ridiculous things. He's talked about immunity for Trump, which went to the Supreme Court, by the way. Do you get immunity as a president? Barnes has argued that this immunity is indefinite for all time. After he's out, he could stab someone, and because he was once president. They did not argue that. And there was no one that argued those things. They were very specific about his time as president. That does make sense. So Barnes, I don't know where he gets some of this stuff. I think that's what he wants, or he wants you to believe it. And it's a little bizarre at best. And by the way, I think he's a much smarter guy than me. He knows a lot, but sometimes your bias gets mixed in there, and then you kind of use that. I think it's, to some extent, used to grift in a way. So anyway, this was the court document. Let's see, did they list anything else in here? So then they do a list with this, actually what they got at the residence, but we've already talked about that, actually, all these documents, all these things. Guy doesn't have great handwriting, but we'll let that go. We've gone over all the magazines, the dollar bills, the substances. There is a little bit of a problem, and by the way, just because what they've got to then test all these items. Remember, they said there was some brown substance found. I was like, ketamine. It's like Clint's bowls or his mugs. Maybe it's heroin. We don't know, right? I'm just throwing that out there due to the track marks. So they would have to test that if that's the case. I just saw Good Logic was saying, well, they didn't find any needles. Okay, well, maybe he threw those away. Who knows? Okay, I don't know. And by the way, this, as we said. This is a government, claiming all these things. So obviously due process, all this stuff going on. I'm more disturbed. By the way, what would I determine out of this? Honestly, like the outcome, I don't want Nick to be serving time. I would love better to have an issue maybe with, an intervention with family, and maybe the kids are fostered with family until they get their shit together, and we could have something. I don't really care about the drugs. I mean, you're doing it around the kids, that's a piece of shit. But I'm not like, you shouldn't be put in jail for doing drugs. Doing drugs are on the gun charge. I'm not for that at all. So I'm really just, as far as like, I'm not like, oh, you put him to jail forever. It is shitty. I think the biggest thing you can do to someone, though, is basically separate them from their kids. That's pretty harmful, but it might be the only thing that really takes this one. Heroin can be snorted. There you go. Thump People Law School. I don't know what that means, but I'm down with it. I think those supporting Nick's Delulu, that he can control his cases, need to make it clear that they are acting on emotions, not as professionals. Nick's only focus should be in dependency court. Yeah, I that's kind of where I'm at too on that one. He will get probation in drug classes. Maybe not, because we're going to play another clip here, and if he takes, because evidently he's losing his shit online, and he's why am I not being able to delete this? Oh, because it's being shared. Stop that. He's losing his shit online, and he's really not taking advice very well. So if he does take it from people like this, let's go here. Let's add this one. Okay, so this is Viva Fry. Okay, we just read that whole post, right? And he says, nowhere in the application for the search warrant does it allege that the children were the source of the accusations of neglect. No. Nowhere. It's quite astonishing that people don't seem to understand this and are continuing to repeat the line that the children were the source of the report. Quoting directly from the application, the reporter indicated that 4 people from the church had gone to him reporting neglect to the children, possibly controlled substance use, and later it was reported from a church preschool teacher that the children had complained. Nowhere does it say kids were the source of that information. It was reported from the church teacher that the children had complained of being hungry, not fed, and wearing the same clothes. I don't know how else to do that, Viva, but that is exactly the kids reporting it. So, okay. So now let's go to an additional document that's been released to date. Now this one, I was really trying to find this document online, but it's a little bit more difficult for me to do, but I found screenshots of it at least. So let's at least take a look here, and I will read it to you. I don't know if you guys can all see that. Hopefully so. Okay. And I'm sorry, these aren't redacted necessarily, but these are kind of the contacts, the reporting party. So that's Melvin Kevin Scott. That's the pastor. London Evangelical Covenant Church. Suspect is Nick. Suspect is his wife. Mentioned Aaron Imholt. And another one was April Imholt. Their addresses, victims. Those are the kids. Kids, probably should have redacted all that stuff. Victim, kids. mentioned, this is what's fascinating. So this person, Paula, preschool teacher at the church, would like to remain anonymous. Obviously, that didn't happen. Another person, sister of Kayla Rekieta, would like to remain anonymous. Cheney, that's the babysitter, didn't say that she wanted to remain anonymous though. Okay, so once again, let's talk about this. When you are using, so think about this. We go into family court all the time. People are like, oh, I want character letters. I want, and they come up with like, it's a custody thing. And you get their coworker that writes something. Oh, they're a wonderful person. I've seen them with their kids when they pick them up or something. And they're like, okay, that's going to do nothing for me. You can be a murderer and be nice at work. It happens. Okay. So those don't mean much to me. And then they're like, oh, my mom's going to testify. She's there. Okay, fine. She could give personal info. That's maybe helpful. The greatest one is when it's the opposing family and you don't have like necessarily, a bunch of issues with them. So with that in mind, when you have a sister coming in and testifying that and by the way, not everything that they said, since it was anonymous, needed to be in the search warrant. So there's definitely, I would imagine, there's more information. The sister of Kayla is reporting to the pastor of what this is. Now they probably know that he's a mandated reporter, which means it's going to get to the cops. The kids are complaining to the teacher. The teacher's complaining or reporting this on up to the pastor. The babysitter who lived there for I think 4 or 5 years, she made claims as well. These are once again, these are the sources. So you go back to Barnes and he's completely off his rocker. These are the sources, okay? Sister, once again, the sister complaining about the husband and her sister themselves. That's like, by the way, I think that is heroic, okay? I talked about this on the last stream where we had my wife's ex, and he's doing drugs, and basically, if you want to see the kids, it's got to be supervised. And Grandma wasn't doing a good job of that, so we're like, it can't happen anymore. But Grandma, if you want to come see the kids, you can see the kids. And she's like, you know what? If he can't see the kids, I don't get to see the kids. Fine. You know how many years it's been since Grandma's seen the kids? A lot. That is horrible. This is a sister who's like, I'm literally trying to save these kids because who knows what could have happened at some point, according to the documents here. And I do tend to believe when family is involved in trying to get these situations cleared up, they're doing it for the right reason, which is, okay, my sister's fucked up, her husband's fucked up, but these kids are from 5 to 16. Let me ask you this. What would you be more embarrassed about if you're Nick Rekieta or Kayla, his wife, and you've got a 16-year-old child, and this is what you're doing, and now it's coming out? Are you more embarrassed of the 16-year-old knowing or the 5-year-old? For me, it's a 16. That's an age. I was very concerned. I divorced, lived on my own, had the kids, and I was very particular about who they ever saw at my house. I didn't want them to grow up someday and start to think, oh, dad had a sleepover a lot. That was interesting. So very careful with those kind of things, and concerned because you are these young minds that you want to someday be, affable people. Okay, you should have redacted the kid's name. What the hell's wrong with you? Could be. Do you want the views of this news? Do you want the views from this news due to your due diligence? If you a CC under our banner, well, I would just want that to happen in responsible reporting. Okay, I don't know what they're talking about. Manega was dipping out Sunday service to do blow. Yes. Apparently, they were arrested in front of the 4 kids, and that will leave a scar. So let me talk about the kids as well. So let me dip this out. By the way, it's all being reported in there, so I don't know about redacting the kids because it's public information. And we're not putting much out there about that. But let me talk about that part, which I think there was another page here. Additional control, that's what, at the crime, at the scene. I think we have one more page here. Okay, let's go through this. Tell you what, just so we're not a problem, I won't post it on the screen, and I will read it so you can, so we don't have any problems. Although this is just what what was found, and which we've already gone over. There was an additional document talking about was this it? Maybe this one's it. That's the one we already talked about. There was an additional document describing the actual arrest, and we broke that down a little bit more. And what it said was they found Nick. There was a warrant for him to search his body and the house. And we talked about this the first time, which is they pulled him over. They told him, they searched him. Then they had the other car go to the house, or multiple cars go to the house. There was a girl there. She wouldn't open up the door for strangers. Excellent. He had one of the kids in the car with him. And then they said, we need the code to get into the house. We have a search warrant. And I think Nick goes with them to the house. And he's like, nope. They go, give us a code to get in there. We have a valid search warrant. And he's like, nope. So the cops actually took a while, and they broke down the door. So there you go. That's another aspect of the kids, Nick putting them in basically a horrible situation when he didn't have to. But I don't know that he's necessarily thinking apart, just right. Apparently they were arrested in front of so that's one of the part. In my opinion, the system has them now, and the only way out is through. They should both be in rehab and getting, yes, that's good. Racket seems lethargic. He's literally narcoleptic. Yes, he was on downers in his last slur stream. Yes, it was sad. And by the way, watching this today, I watched someone else, and let me play that part. It was depressing. Okay, I see this as a parent. I see this as someone who's had kids go through this. As far as like being the kids in this situation, like I just mentioned about the ex, my wife's ex, and I see this on a daily basis as a family law attorney, of having these issues. And how they are presented to kids. Now, kids are amazing. They could get through things, but you also don't want them perpetuating the same kind of things that their parents went through, and oftentimes that happens. So we are concerned about that. And I do have a few notes here. I just want to make sure I don't miss CPS. So Sabrina Speakeasy mentioned that, which is that's the likely outcome that you're going to have here. You're likely, since this is an arrest, you often have this after the fact. Now CPS comes in. It makes me wonder, because I've done this before. Clients are often saying, "Oh, should I do a wellness check?" For CPS. Sometimes CPS will do it. Sometimes they won't. Like I've said before, they can fix the family, save children and ruin families all at the same time. So you don't ever know when that's going to take place. And sometimes, if you just do a wellness check, how are you going to know that the kids are actually in okay? Nick, if you don't have a warrant, I'm going to do a wellness check. Can I come in? No, you're not going to. You saw this. The kids weren't letting him in. Nick wasn't giving you the code. No CPS is going to come into the house. So there were complaints early on, Viva Fry and them, like they could have just done a wellness check. It's like, okay, maybe, but they had enough evidence here to get a warrant, and so why not go that route? So you could have done that. Now, the kid, likely CPS is going to get involved, and they're going to be doing some sort of investigation, and you may have then, they can talk to the kids, then those kids can, their report, are they going to be able to testify? A 5-year-old's not going to testify. A 12-year-old's not going to testify. 16-year-old, possibly. Usually 14 and above, you've got to get the court's permission to do so, depending on that. And that's just in family court. But then you usually have exceptions for this hearsay, which is a CPS reporter can come in there, and it's based on this, doing a report and an investigation, and they will report that out to the court. So we'll see what happens. They'll do a safety action plan, and everyone's got to follow that. I prefer that that's the case. Hey, go get you some rehab. No one was actually harmed at this point. So it's an ugly situation. The question is, did they have a right to come in there, save those kids? This is probably the best solution actually for doing this. So could very well be. East Tech. Okay, you guys are talking about Texas. Well, hell, I'm looking for a new family attorney. You don't practice in Texas, do you? No, I'm in California. I appreciate that. I even do this I basically practice in 2-3 counties. Oh, actually 3 or 4 counties. And people ask me to be in other counties. I'm just get someone local. That's your best bet. Texas law is different than California, so obviously I wouldn't even be able to practice there. I'm not licensed in there, so do that. Okay, and good luck. By the way, check out my streams on more stuff here, because I do try to help what you've got to do. I don't know if you're a man or a woman. If you're going through this, there's a check out. I have a Substack, and I do have some comments there about some things you can do for family law, preparing for litigation. Men don't do it the right way, and then they complain about the system being against them, when women seem to be more prepared or always anticipating litigation, because those bitches be that way. Okay, let's go through. We talked about Viva Fry. He's a crazy man. Wanted to see if there were any other here's. I did want to play this. This is a follow-up. Where is it at here? Barnes is crazy. Viva is dumb. Barnes update stream. There we go. Okay, so we'll bring this in here. There's an ad, and this is them when they got them being Viva and Barnes when they got the breakdown of the warrant ready, and this is kind of their reaction to how they perceive other people.
Weird seeing you on a weekday.
Yeah, indeed. A special edition, Viva and Barnes. It's time for the OG of LawTube to educate the rest of LawTube, which is apparently proving that more than a few of them are constitutionally illiterate. And some of them apparently are reading the Constitution with their one bad eye. Some others that looks like something out of a Jabba the Hutt movie are educating other people about their health conditions and confusing the criminal law in the process.
Okay, first of all, he's talking about Nate, the lawyer who was a prosecutor for years in New York, and then he was a defense attorney, and so he's written. He laughed at Nick, Barnes the other day on a few things. I agree completely. Now he's talking about this other guy, and look at the fat man on the right. This is the Jake and the fat man. He's making fun of people's appearance. Now, I'm not necessarily making fun of people's appearance. I'm mocking how he thinks this is an appropriate thing for him to do when this is how you look. Someone said earlier, it looks like he's like the thumb. So anyway, that's an embarrassing thing.
A lot of people in LawTube have been responding to the Sunday show and making complete retards of themselves, revealing the degree to which how many of them are just completely illiterate about the Constitution. And I think your point is right. People in LawTube, especially, or those concerned about the Constitution, just remove the name of the person here. Forget who the person is here. Well, it's George Jones. It's Jack Brown. It's whomever. Because people are so caught up in the emotions of the individual involved that they're not just applying basic constitutional law principles. And then more than a few people are just grifting, like potentially criminal Sean. The only thing accurate about his name is probably the criminal part.
Barnes is unleashing now.
This is a guy that only the world only knows about because of Nick Rekieta, and he's making basically just ridiculous statements about probable cause in the Fourth Amendment. And this goes back because we'll also bridge into reviewing the Trump closing arguments, which are happening as we speak.
Okay, I think we'll stop there because I think we walked through the probable cause stuff just fine to see that the totality of the situation calls for the warrant to be okay. Okay, you're just not going to get past that. I just don't think you're going to be able to break down that. You're not going to even be on appeal. It's what it is, and I don't think there's going to be much of an issue. So Jabara says $1,000 a month for a 19-year-old is getting tiresome. Okay, you're still paying for child support at 19. Typically, I don't know Texas, but for the most part, children emancipate at it's 18 and out of high school. So it's technically like 19, and I think 19 for good. So I don't know why you're paying that. You might want to check if it's going through DCSS. They should have already cut that off if you're just paying the spouse. 19 is usually you're done. It's usually 18 and out of high school. So they turn 18 in January, then graduate in June or end of May. They've emancipated. You're done at that point. I have another one that she just graduated, but she doesn't turn 18 until, not mine personally, but the client, and she didn't turn 18 until November. You should be done in November. That's the kind of thing. So special needs. So it's okay. I have one of those too. Not me personally, but a client. You're going to be paying. So that's now. I'll just give you some advice here. In California, it's not a mandatory. It's permissive, but it's likely going to be ordered. So I feel for you on the special needs. Good luck with that. Okay, so there's Barnes, and I don't need to. There were some other things I had here about some other LawTube people talking about Barnes and kind of the crap, but I just don't know that we need to necessarily get into it. I think he's just wrong in general on a lot of stuff. So let me see. I put Nick and his wife could still have an investigation for the CPS against them. Yes. Hearsay, we've talked about that. Hearsay is used for the warrant. It can be used in hearings. and pleadings and whatnot. But then when you get to trial, that is when we really come in, and those are those facts. We do this all the time. We go to a hearing, things come, maybe the judge orders one way or not, the client may or may not like it. And then you go, I want a trial over this. It's called a short cause hearing that we had. And then we set it for a trial. And when we set it for a trial, that is where oftentimes it's not even the same judge that has been hearing everything, at least in the family courts. And so you've got to present everything at trial. Who cares what was said earlier? It doesn't matter. So that hearsay is not admissible at this point. But can you get it in now? That's how we have to go. Okay. Between Rekieta and Chase Oliver nomination, who took the the bigger loss? Small or big L, libertarians? Well, I think I don't know. I mean, the Chase Oliver thing. I'm supposed to talk to Zach. See, I got to get that done. He's in college at UNT. I just hate my ex-wife and I'm grumpy about it. I'm with you. I got it. Yeah, I don't hate my ex-wife, but who took the bigger L? Small or big L, libertarians? Look, for me personally, I didn't go to the convention, so I'm not really, and I kind of tuned it out. My kid was graduating. I've got another wedding. We're leaving on Saturday, and then I got another graduation. I had a wedding last week. There's a lot going on, so I just and that's when you realize, and I think this is the important part too, and you see this, I think it's just even the difference between conservatives and like college kid liberals, which is who has time to protest? Those that aren't working, unless it's a major deal or your house is bombed or maybe your parents are in Gaza, I don't know. So who has I didn't have the time for the LP. I mean, I looked at a few things and it was like entertaining, and honestly, it was a little depressing. I had a little FOMO with it though. I will say that. With special needs in most states, it could usually be 70% of your income, depending on a wide range of things. It's hard to say state by state. Yeah, I guess I don't know. It says thanks. So that's what we have. Was there anything else with these guys? I mean, look, here's the concept. Here's what I'm getting at with this is I don't want Rekieta to be put in jail. I'm not a fan of drug charges. I am a big hater of people doing these things around your kids. This is you watched just a year ago. Rekieta was fine. He made a decision. And he made a decision with his wife to do multiple things. They talked about the partying that they were doing, the wife swapping and whatnot. That was, once again, you're looking at it and you're like, that's not even relevant. No, it does play a part because it's partying in the house. Matter of fact, that Imhol guy was on another stream, Alex Steins, and he said, you know what, one time they came and did drugs at my house. I told them no drugs in the house, at our house, because we have kids, but they did. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, I got rid of him. It's just like, okay, he's trying to do something. And you're an adult. You've got to make decisions. And when you have kids, this is, I have clients that do this all the time. Like they have custody. And so it's on their time. The court will often write, you don't get to have no alcohol consumption 24 hours before you have custody. And then they're like, but I want a glass of wine or I just want to have a beer. And I'm like, well, then you put yourself in this situation. You got a divorce or you didn't get married and you had kids and you split up and the state is now involved in dictating orders for you. You're stuck here. But you know what? What do you want? Do you want to do that and then lose your kids? These are the rules that we're under, unfortunately. I would not say that this is ideal in a lot of sense. But here's beyond that. And I said this last time, and this is what I did personally, which is even when I got remarried. And so then we had joint kids together. We had, there were my two and her two, which I've taken on myself. But when we had those kids around, which is always basically 24/7, we weren't both drunk together. I mean, we're just talking about alcohol. It just, someone is there in case something goes wrong. And it had nothing to do with a court order. That had to do with being a parent. You got to get up in the morning. I mean, the worst case scenario was we all got sick at one point and I'm shitting and throwing up at the same time. Imagine it. You sit down you got to make a decision. You go into the bathroom and you're like, I'm going to throw up and I'm going to have diarrhea. Which one is going in the tub and which one's going in the toilet? That's a key moment of decision making. Do you think Biden could do that kind of, on the spot thinking right now? Probably not. So we had to make those kind of decisions. And my real point is we were so sick, but we had to take one of the kids to school. And you just figure shit out. And that was maybe the worst situation. Even COVID wasn't so bad. Okay, I'll take a few more questions here and then we'll get done here. Jabara says, I'm torn on this. I support legalizing all drugs, but I hate. So you are absolutely right. And this is the problem, the libertarian problem of how do you deal with these situations, right? It's Dave Smith, kids at the park, right? Yes, you want to legalize, but there's a responsibility. And by the way, if you were to take this over to the full-on chaos theory, Robert Murphy, anarcho-state type of situation, you would probably have more strict community laws than you possibly do with you could, right? You can have a community that's like, we're not dealing with this kind of shit with kids. And there are, that's the unique situation that you have to deal with always. And the kids knew, and that's capital punishment where possibly of all four would sleep in the same bed, and kids would knock on the door, tuck me in, mommy. And then Aaron comes out to read them their bedtime stories. Shit. Wait, are you talking about, you're talking about the Imholtz? That's what he said? Damn. And that's a probable cause issue too, which is doing those things around kids. It's not even like, oh, we're in a polygamous marriage. I mean, you got the Latter-day Saints, the strict version of those, where they have polygamy is still their deal. But are you engaging in sexual acts with your kids? And we talked about this on the last stream, not with your kids, but around your kids. Talked about this on the last stream, which is, a spouse or new person gets a boyfriend or girlfriend. The court doesn't care unless you're doing something around those kids, which is, not good. Which I had one where they had the door wide open, kids would walk in, and they were doing like Cleveland steamers and all kinds of gross stuff. So that was a problem. Sabrina says, people don't get that CPS is an enforcement agency. All parents should know their rights as parents in their state. Absolutely. Like I said, they can help or completely kill your family. Mr. Buttshine, if that's true, they do deserve some time, possibly. I don't know, but it could be. Oh, shit. You're going to get me canceled off here. These problems on a fundamental level are social and even spiritual. Government laws are best at just slapping a bandage on a bullet wound. This is JC. The more we enter a centralized paternal state, the worse humanity will behave. The idea of personal responsibility is becoming more foreign to people. Absolutely. And that was my take initially with, and we'll end it here, was my take initially with Good Logic is, and I think he's a good guy, but not understanding necessarily the element of how the addiction works, and that sometimes the sister, what did she do? Evidently, allegedly, it appears she didn't say, "Oh, I'm so concerned about Nick." She's like, "Well, I am, but I'm gonna fucking report this to the pastor because these kids need to be protected." Ultimately, that's I think what spurs them. Otherwise, you just like my sister. I mean, but at some point, you just detach and you go, I'm going to save the kids, and these two adults are going to have to get their shit together on their own because we can't save them. If you don't care enough to fix yourself before the situation and you put your kids in harm's way, which is exactly what they did if they're doing those drugs, then I don't know that I'm going to, struggle myself to care so much until you just resolve your situations, and we're just going to worry about the kids themselves. I'm Mr. Law Dog. I'm with Mr. Law Dog here. When I had my kids, I stayed sober just in case. With 4 teenagers, something was always happening. Absolutely. And then when those kids drive, then you just get skunked, drunk, and you're good to go. Maybe not. All right, everybody. Tower Gang tonight, 9/11 p.m. Eastern. Join us for that. I don't think there's a guest. I prefer it when there's not. I think they're more funny that way. And look for me one more before the weekend. I think we'll try to get that in here. We got one more thing here. 4 members of the community reported him, plus his sister-in-law. Yes, sister, kids, whatnot. Okay, guys, I gotta go.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
Now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast, I can't find it anywhere. They don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke, yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
Like,
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.